Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, the exhibition season schedule has been released and we take a peek. We also look at good and bad 60-game stretches.
And I'm thinking about piping in crowd noise here at home. But first, a look at the SRBB headline.
The MLB 2021 schedule has been announced. The Dodgers open on the road against the Rockies while the Angels host the White Sox. The 2021 season starts on April 1st.
Buster Posey opts out of the 2020 season.
Per the Sporting News, Blue Jays players could face a $750,000 fine and possible jail time if they're caught outside of the stadium hotel bubble. The Blue Jays are now looking into playing home games at their AAA affiliate stadium in Buffalo, New York.
And MLS is back tournament is underway without the Dallas Football Club, and now Nashville SC Soccer Club has been withdrawn after 9 players test positive. And that's today's SRBB headlines. Remember, you can find these and previous headlines at our website, siblingrivalrybb.com. Make sure that you subscribe and rate us and tell a friend. Looks like we are on a collision course with a season. It looks a little steadier now than it did just a week ago even. Things were still kind of shaky. We weren't sure how things were going to go, but it does look like we're finally going to get this regular season in. They made up some schedules. They've released those schedules. We're going to take a look at those, and we're going to get into the quandary of pandemic scheduling or the true hell of logistics.
As we mentioned last week, the 2020 60-game schedule is a regional schedule, so meaning that your AL West teams will play your NL West teams and so on and so forth as far as where they're going to be. So when you're looking at the schedule, I would say the East Coast teams probably have it the easiest because they don't have to go out of their time zone. And they'll just be up and down I-95 for the most part.
I beg to differ.
Okay.
I think that the Central Division has it the easiest. And you can take it just by when you look at the numbers of who travels the most versus who travels the least. I don't know if you saw, but on the MLB network that they showed a chart that showed where they were traveling. And of course, the West has the most travel. The Central Division is the smallest little area, whereas the East divisions, they have to go all the way down to Florida, potentially up to whether they go all the way up to Toronto or they just go to Buffalo, as was mentioned. They still have longer trips. The Brewers will travel the least amount of miles this season, only traveling 3,962.
Yeah, the most traveled teams, if you look at the bottom of that list, because it's like the top 5, you do have, or top 6, sorry, you do have the Rays at 1,939. And then the Blue Jays at 9,284, but depending on if they go to Buffalo, but even Buffalo's up there in upstate New York, so I think their travel miles.
That difference between Toronto and Buffalo would be negligible in the big picture. But see, they're still, if the Brewers are only doing around 4,000 miles, everybody else is doing double what they're doing. They're the least traveled. And of course, that means there's other central teams that will go a little farther. The Brewers and the Cubs and the White Sox are all like an hour, hour and a half away from one another. So it makes it easy. That cuts down on a lot of their travel just for the times that they play each other.
One of the cool things about the 2020 schedule is MLB is still having those special days. August 13th, Major League Baseball is still going to Iowa, where MLB at Field of Dreams will take place. The White Sox and the Yankees were supposed to play, but now because of the regional play, the Cardinals have been slotted in for the first MLB game ever played in the state. And they have a newly constructed ballpark near the site from the great film Field of Dreams, all surrounded by cornfields. Even though the fans won't be able to be there, still be cool to see that. August 16th, MLB will honor the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues. August 28th will be Jackie Robinson Day, rescheduled, of course, from April 15th. August 28th is a significant date in the history of the country's civil rights movement, marking the anniversary of March on Washington in 1963. And on that date in 1945, Robinson met with the Dodgers branch Rickey to discuss the possibility of signing with the Dodgers. September 9th is Roberto Clemente Day. September 27th is the last day.
The final day of the season. The one nice thing about that is we'll start the postseason almost as if it was normal.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I guess you could say is normal about this season, this exhibition season. It's hard to call it a regular season because we all know it's not. We don't want to fool ourselves into thinking it is. But still cool that MLB is still doing these type of special events that are meaningful to baseball history.
Absolutely. So one thing when you talk about baseball history that is probably about to come to an end, after 133 consecutive seasons, the Phillies and the Pirates will not play each other. They've been doing this since 1887. And unless they meet in the playoffs for some reason, which I'm not holding my breath, at least not for the Pirates, that streak is over.
Gone. All because of Rob Manfred. It's his fault.
Well, I mean, yes. He had
Among
help.
Other things. I know.
He had help. That guy COVID helped
Right.
him out.
Well,
so that's kind of a sad thing in the big picture. It's not worth canceling a whole season over, but it is kind of sad when you think about that tradition, because this is a game steeped in traditions, because a lot of areas they still get to play in regional areas. That was always the fight for Pennsylvania right there. They're on opposite sides of the state. The Pirates and the Phillies get to duke it out to be bragging rights for that year.
Kings of Pennsylvania.
Exactly. And they don't get that this year. So from that side of it, I'm kind of sad of it. Otherwise, had we not been talking about this and looked into it, I probably wouldn't have even thought about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that either. So they'll be in the history books as the end of that game for this year. And then it'll start again next year, hopefully.
Well, it will, because unless one team goes to the American League all of a sudden, which I don't see. Those are two legacy type teams.
Yeah, I don't see that.
It wasn't like when you moved Milwaukee from the American League to the National League, or the Astros swapped. Those weren't teams that had long-standing. You figure these two guys, the Phillies and the Pirates, have been playing since 1887. Those two teams. There's just something more concrete in their National Leagueism.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, speaking of schedules, if you really need to stay close to home, then the Padres have the probably, I'm not going to say the best schedule, because it's not really the best schedule, but they only leave the state of California once in September. And that's for a 3-game series in Seattle.
Well, that kind of works, I guess, because they do all their traveling in August, the end of July, but primarily the season is 2 months, August and September. So they get to do all their traveling out of the way in 1 month, and then they get to kind of hang out at home. I think that bodes well for them as far as being in their own friendly confines. I was thinking when I said that, I was thinking about the Cubs because they talk about Wrigley Field being the friendly confines. And I was like,
Yes.
so this year is it the empty confines, the lonely confines, because there's no fans in
I
there.
like the Lonely Confines.
I
That's
think
almost like
they
a
need,
band name, the Lonely
right? Yeah,
Confines.
the lonely confines. Opening for U2 on their worldwide virtual tour, the lonely confines. What's going to happen in Chicago? I know this goes off to the side, but are they going to maybe put some of the taxi squad guys out there, and when a home run gets hit out there by the other team, they can throw the ball back? Because what happens with no fans? Who's going to
Right.
throw the ball back?
Right. And that's a part of Wrigley Field that you expect. The other thing I'm wondering is there are those apartments, that are behind the outfield. I don't know, done some things at Wrigley Field with their scoreboard. So I don't know how good of a look you would have into the stadium, but there might be, because you used to see people up on the rooftops.
Well, they sell those
So
seats.
yeah, so
That's
with
not like before. Like back in the day, it was people lived in the building could go to their
yeah.
roof. Now there's actual grandstands up there, and people buy they pay to
So I
sit up
didn't
there.
even realize that they paid to sit
Yeah.
there now. I'm going back to Harry Carey days when I used to watch on WGN.
Exactly. No, you're right about that. They eventually realized, hey, we need to make some money off.
Yeah, well, good on them for being that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, let's just monetize everything.
Well, no, I
Is there
actually thought it
nothing
was
pure
always
anymore?
no. I actually always thought it was really cool as a kid watching WGN. Of course, watch WGN when the Dodgers were playing the Cubs, and I always thought it was really cool that, it's like, wow, those people live right next to Wrigley Field. They can watch the games, pay to get in there, just turn on their radio or their TV, however they wanted to listen. But yeah, so.
Well, and that was the cool thing, and that's what makes that and Fenway Park so unique now, because they were neighborhood stadium. You see the pictures of like Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. It was just like it was just a building on a street corner. When you look at it from that standpoint, that could have been an office building for all that mattered how it was set. But the ballpark was right there in the neighborhood. Now that's not the case anymore. These ballparks, there's a few of them that are built in like downtown areas, but it's not the same as it was when you look at those ballparks where people actually live right around them. And whether there's a game or not, it's a part of the community.
I am embarrassed to say this because I lived on the East Coast for a while. I have been to Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, but not to see a ball game. I saw Pink Floyd there in 1994. And I remember there was the subway the train would run right behind. So if you were on the train, you could get a glimpse of what was going on in the stadium. But I never made it back for a game. So I'm sad about that. But I have watched the Phillies play in Veteran Stadium.
This is over. I'm done talking to you. I never thought about the fact that all that time you lived there that you didn't make it to a game. How could you not?
Stadium.
Yeah, but how could you not have made it? No, you went to go see the Trenton Thunder.
Right.
And you went and saw the Phillies. And I saw a Phillies game at Veteran Stadium, and I didn't even live there for whatever 18 years that you lived there.
I lived there 18 years.
And then how many times did you make it to Camden Yards?
Once.
So you went to Camden Yards once, and then you went to the Nationals Stadium too, right?
No.
No, okay. Well, because at one point when you were living there in Maryland, you sent me a Nationals hat. Maybe probably not long after they became the Nationals. But.
I don't know why what the circumstances were or why I never made it there. But yeah, I regret that time period in my life.
You could have went to Yankee Stadium. You could have went to Shea Stadium at the time.
I know.
And
It's
then
crazy.
you did go to Philly. Philly was closer, right? To where you guys were?
We were like 45 minutes across the river. Yeah. Yeah. That part of my baseball life, I regret. I don't regret that part of my life. I mean, let me retract
you know what?
that part.
We kind of regret that part of your life. Now we just accept. But back then.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just laid it out there. You heard my full confession right here on Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast.
Yep. It's all there. It's out in the open. We all know.
But I did go and see the Trenton Thunder lots of times. So I don't know if that counts, but they were 30 minutes away.
Yeah, take the easy road.
I'm just going to put my shovel down now.
Yeah, just keep digging that hole. Now, we talked about, because even then, the teams that were, the Rays have the sixth. In the top 6 teams, as far as travel, 5 of them are from the West. I think they're all from the AL West, because you have the most traveled team this year will be the Rangers at 14,700 miles, followed by the Astros. Honestly, I think the Astros, as part of their issue, should be on the road the whole season.
Yes, no home games.
I don't know how they would work that out. Talk about the quandary of scheduling, but they should just have to be the road team and not get to play. No home
designated.
Yeah,
I like that.
So I think the West, as far as travel goes, the West obviously has the biggest hurdles, and that's more because of how the West are set up. The Texas, in order to balance everything out, the Texas teams have to be in the West. It's just the way it is. I mean, they've always been in the West, even though they would be more connected to the Central. The other teams are more Central than they are, I guess. I mean, well, the Central's more kind of like towards the north and middle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about the Brewers and the Cubs, their stadiums are less than 100 miles apart.
Right.
I mean, you can get on a train in Chicago and be in Milwaukee in 90 minutes or something like that.
Right. It's a short trip. So when you look at that, like we were talking about, from Milwaukee, the 3 teams right there, the Cubs, the White Sox, and the Brewers, which account for what, 20, 25 games? I think. I'm not sure how many.
Even in the least amount of travel, we talk about the Brewers being, at that 3,962, but the White Sox are on that list, and they're only at 4,750. And all of those teams on the least amount, as you said, are all in the Central Division, AL or NL. So yeah, they do have it easier as far as their travel, because they also will stay in the same time zone.
With the exception of Pittsburgh, which really isn't that big of a deal. You're just barely, and that hour for that, it's not going to be a big deal because you didn't travel. So those are little things that'll be interesting. Obviously, there's always a lot of travel throughout the year, and every team in their league plays the other team at least once, and then we throw in the rotation of the interleague games where you're always going to have, and then you always have the natural rivalry matchups like the Dodgers, Angels, Cubs, White Sox.
Yeah, we also see this year some of those traditional opening day series, like the Giants and the Dodgers, the Angels and the A's. So those are those type of games where we're used to, like, okay, the Giants and the Dodgers are going to play. That's just a given. I think we all expect that.
I think the bigger thing is, and there are going to be some interleague games to open the season. There's going to be more of those this season to start.
There's going to be 3 on opening day.
Now, too, the end of the season, normally you see matchups versus your own division as well. So you kind of start off strong against your division, you end against your division, usually, especially at the end, because you might be playing for a playoff spot, or somebody may just be trying to play spoiler. We may not, in fact, in a lot of cases, we're not going to see that. We see a lot of interleague. In fact, the Dodgers and the Angels finished the season this year.
Cubs, White Sox finished the season.
In addition to those kind of quirks, the other thing is, and this does happen throughout the season, I'm surprised that they couldn't figure out a way around it here. But 7 teams will play the maximum days in a row that they can per the CBA, and that's 20. 7 teams will play 20 games in a row. The Braves, the Mariners, and Tigers will start the season 20 game stretches, which maybe that works for them based on it's the beginning of the season. They're fresh. They get it out of the way. It's not like towards the end of the season. Not that the end of the season should be any kind of huge grind or anything like a regular season. You think by the time we normally get to this part of the season, and I think this is something that's going to work out for all the teams, is that normally you get to game 60. You're in June timeframe?
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting in. You're starting to hit your stride. Normally on September 27th, you have the teams that are just playing out the string or just looking to finish up the season. You get a lot of guys who are, hopefully your team is healthy, but you're tired after all that 162 games. That's not going to be the case this year. This year, these guys are going to start on the 23rd or 24th. And by the time they hit September 27th, they're just going to be hitting their stride. This could be the greatest playoff season ever simply because they only played a short exhibition season before they went into the playoffs.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
Thanks, Vin. You're right. It is time for Dodger baseball. Finally, Dodgers will start off like they normally do. They have the Giants at home. And then things go sideways because they go to Houston.
Probably one of the biggest matchups that all baseball fans, regardless of what team you root for, everybody wants to see this.
My only concern is that it won't be the intense game that it could be because things are tempered by the health and welfare rules and things like that. It's a different feeling season. Now they do play each other next year in 2021, but now's the time that everything is hot. Now I feel like we can carry it through as fans, but will the players do that? And what happens if the Dodgers win this truncated season and take home the World Series trophy this year? Are they going to be as fired up about the fact that they lost in 2017 going into 2021? I don't know.
Those are good questions to think about. I think one of the biggest things is no fans. So, which would obviously be the biggest part of the game with the Astros and the Dodgers playing. Obviously, what's going on the field, but the fans too. Are they going to pipe in the crowd noise, but is it going to be booing and you won't have
that would be that's a good question because does that cross some sort of a line? Maybe a little bit of booing, but if they just had it just overwhelming, I see that the Astros would probably take issue with it and claim that it's not that's not professional.
Well, I think so. The Dodgers are going to go to Houston first. So if anybody was going to do that, I think it would be the Astros. And then the Dodgers, of course, wouldn't do that because they're a lot classier. Now, I could see where Dieter Rule or DJ Severe, they might plug in some certain songs, but will the Astros even get it? Will they even know what that means? I don't know.
They probably would. The one thing that I'm missing out is I really wanted to see Alex Bregman get beamed. Just whacked. And I didn't, normally I'm against people getting hit in the head and stuff. If you're going to throw at somebody, hit them in, an area that's not going to won't take them out, won't do that. Alex Bregman, I just like this. Honestly, I'd like to see him like tied to a wall and then them put the pitching machine, the jugs machine, dialed up to 100 and just right at him.
Just nonstop.
in Happy Gilmore, where he's trying to get ready for the hockey season, he's in the batting cage, standing in front, taking it to the chest. I want to see that. No protective equipment. I just want to see Alex Bregman get pelted.
Yes, I would be in that camp too. We are not Alex Bregman fans on SRBB at all.
No.
So I'm getting back to the Dodgers. I was reading an article in Sports Illustrated from Matt Martell. Now, he says that the Dodgers probably have one of the easiest schedules because the Dodgers are the best team in the NL West. That is not up for debate. And they're the favorite to win the pennant. And they won't have to play any of the teams in the NL East or Central unless, in the playoffs.
Yeah, but the NL Central is not a big deal. The NL and the AL Central is the weakest.
True.
So not being able to have them is kind of like taking away the padding, and there's some cruising. Not that any of those are pushovers, but the AL West and the NL West hold the top two teams. From last season.
Mm-hmm.
The Astros and the Dodgers had the two best records in baseball, period.
Right.
So all of the Western teams, their schedule, their strength of schedule, or the difficulty, everybody's went up because they're all playing one another, and they were all the best teams overall.
Right. Yeah. One of the things he does mention is David Price opting out and how that hurts the rotation. I don't agree with that. I'd love to see David Price pitch this year. We'll get to see him next year. But if you've been watching any of the intra-squad games the Dodgers have been playing, Dustin May looks really good. Ross Stripling looks really good. I know they're intra-squad games, but
just look at last season.
Yeah, I know
David
that
Price
too.
wasn't a member of last season's team.
True. And
where did
they get?
The overall makeup has not changed that much. Kenta Maeda's gone. Rich Hill's gone.
Ryu, yeah.
Those guys are gone. And I'm not saying that doesn't hurt, but when you look at their starting rotation, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, you have Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May, who both showed that they can start and pitch well. They really didn't need David Price. And honestly, if they could have taken Mookie, if they could have gotten Mookie without David Price to sweeten that deal to make it happen, I don't care about Friedman's connection. Friedman's the guy who drafted Price in the first place. I don't think he would have taken him if he didn't have to. That's not his way. So he may not have even been part of this if they could have worked out a different deal. I'm glad he's there. I think he'll make a difference when he does pitch, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. And we've talked about it before, but listening around, there's a lot of players who are saying, hey, this extra time off has been excellent. I feel younger now because I'm fully healthy. This time off will maybe help David Price. All those little nagging injuries, all those little things will put him in a position that when he comes back next year, who knows? Cy Young.
Yeah,
if he doesn't get beat out by Walker Buehler.
Right. Yeah. I bring up the intra-squad games. One, they're fun to watch because there's Chico Hernandez, who's clubhouse attendant playing left field, and he's got an arm, but he never got to hit, which was unfortunate. And that he probably won't, because I think they've
already benched him because players have been coming in.
Right.
All those guys that weren't there to begin, like Kenley Jansen, showed up finally, and we find out later he tested positive, and he was one we were worried about.
Yeah, his whole
sad
family.
For Chico, though.
It is. He has a great arm, but it's been fun to watch those games because you hear the chatter, you see the guys jostling. I think he does this anyway during the games, like regular games, but he's out there dancing and they're just having fun. And so it's nice to see. It's nice to see that they're loose and they're getting ready, but also to see these pitchers really feeling younger, their mechanics are better. Not having David Price in the rotation is not going to hurt the Dodgers this year.
No, I don't think so either. And now we have the closer, so it's just a matter of, and he doesn't have to. I know that's one of the big things that I'm hearing across the board is that we don't know if having this pitcher, there's supposed to be a starter coming in, if we'll be able to get them stretched out in time for the season, ready to pitch that at least 6 innings.
The Dodgers will log 10,291 miles over the 66-day season. That's the second most among the NL West teams. They have to travel the furthest. They have to play the Rockies, the Mariners, the Rangers, and the Astros. But of those teams, as you said, Houston is the only one that finished above 500 last season. But in this shortened season, I don't want to take for granted, yes, the Dodgers have a deep lineup, but I don't want to say, oh yeah, they're going to take it all because a team finished under 500. That's in 162 games, and we're only looking at 60. So there, as you said before, there could be a lot of surprises in this shortened season.
Yeah, there will be, because we just don't know how anybody's going to start off, and we know, the story that keeps getting thrown out there. It happened last season, was brought here, that when we look at the first 60 games of the Nationals, they were a bottom team. There's no way that you would have expected them to end up being the world champs, even getting in the playoffs. Making the wild card was far away, it seemed. And not knowing how some teams are going to start the season, it happens even with the best players. They start off in a slump or just something, another team comes out hot, and no matter how good you play, they just play better. The one good thing the Dodgers have going for them is they're still in the NL West, where there's not really anybody getting any better. The teams are all kind of status quo. They're not much worse. They're not much better. They're right in there. They'll be competitive some days, but the Dodgers, they just need to come out and play like they're in the playoffs every day, and they'll be fine. Now I know there's a lot of talk about 60-game stretches, and MLB.com did a whole story about it for every team. The Dodgers' best record to start a season, or not to start, their best 60-game stretch was in 2017 when they went 51-9, and that stretch was it wasn't to begin the season. It was June 9th through August 19th.
Yeah. During that time, they increased their division lead from 2 games to 20 games, and Cody Bellinger made his MLB debut. So,
right, and made a difference. So that stretch, but you got to look at it started in June, and what did we just talk about a bit ago? That's when they hit their stride. Not that they weren't playing well. So I went and looked instead at best starts. And I found a few, and for the Dodgers had one of the best starts ever, and this was over their first 40 games. They were 30-10 to start the season. Now, in this league, or in this season, going 30-10 to start would be incredible. You're going to be on top of everything. That only throws out 20 more games. Chances are they're going to have quite a good record after all that, and definitely put themselves as a number 1 seed probably in the NL playoffs. Now in 2019, their best stretch was April 14th to June 20th. So that's even good, because it shows early in the season they started off strong. My feeling is how do you start it? How do you end it? It's like a marathon, right? So start off fast, set your pace, and then you cruise through the middle, and then you pick it up at the end. What was it always on the last lap when you were in gym class, or if you were running that last stretch? Everybody always told you, they're always a run. You sprinted to the end, so you had a strong finish.
Yes. Yeah, during that time last year that you mentioned, that 60-game stretch from April 14th to June 20th, they went 43-17. They played the Brewers. They swept the Braves. They split a series with the Nationals. The Cubs, Giants, Padres, and Mets were in there too. So they swept 4 series during this time, and they split a series with the Nationals and the Mets. Just going through and looking at that particular stretch. And it's interesting too, you have to look at who they were playing. And from April 14th to June 20th, they split the series with the Nationals, and the Nationals were not on top of their game at that point. I think they were like 19-36 in May 23rd.
Right. It was something like that.
So, but they still split the series with them because you would expect with that type of record, they'd just come in and just, mow them down, but they didn't.
Right. That's the other thing I think about in 2017. I don't remember how long. It seemed like it was a 100-game losing streak at the end of 2017.
Yes.
Where they went and just had that really bad stretch. And that's another thing that we have to think about. What's the worst 60-game stretch these teams have been through? The Dodgers they can go through. You can't, in this short of a season, they can't afford to have any lengthy time. They can come out of the gate and go 30-10 and then lose the last 20 and end up as a 500 team. While that's not likely, it is possible.
It is. It's one of those things. I think I'm superstitious in this. At any time, despite this not being a regular season, but any season, I always, of course, come into the season excited for the Dodgers and for them to do well and to go forward. But my superstitious sports fan comes out, and I was like, okay, just this series. Let's get through this series. Let's get through the next series, because I don't want to look too far ahead, because I could be disappointed. And plus, if I'm watching the game and I'm not sitting in the right seat or the right position in my living room, that can cause issues. If I'm not, there's lots of different things that go.
All the superstitions, like you said, that go with it. I don't get that bad, but I guess that's why they say you got to play them one game at a time. Yeah. We can't worry about the World Series because we haven't gotten there yet. Can't even worry about the playoffs because we haven't gotten there yet. Job one, win your division. Then worry about the other things as they come. And then make sure that every one of your fans and all your players are wearing the right socks, sitting in the right chair, have their beverage of their choice on the right coaster, on the right table.
Yes.
If it's a can or a bottle of something, it's turned just right. So that way, the angle of it.
Well, didn't you wear red shoelaces during in 2002?
In 2020. In 2020, I haven't even combed my hair but a couple of times. In 2002, I put red shoelaces in my shoes, and I wore red socks, like tall red socks, like players wear. And I wore red socks, and I wore those every day till they won the World Series.
And it worked.
It did. It was perfect. So the Dodgers looked pretty good, as we know. They looked good coming in March when we thought we were going to start the season. They still look good now because the players are still there. We don't know. Obviously, lots could change. We don't know if any other players will opt out at any point. It seems unlikely that Kenley Jansen will opt out simply because he made it through. Of course, the last thing he probably wants to do is get it again.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the thing. Right now, we're dealing with a lot of these players that weren't in camp to begin with. Like we talked about last week, it's so easy to know why guys aren't in camp because they don't go like, oh, he's got a hamstring problem or, a blister or an oblique. I think Dylan Peters from the Angels had an oblique issue. They told you. when they
Yes,
say
they don't tell
we
you.
we can't talk about that due to league protocol. Okay, COVID
Right.
tested positive.
Yeah, Pedro Baez hasn't been in camp yet. Dave Roberts has been in contact with him. He says he's in good spirits. What when somebody says they're in
He's
good
in good spirits.
spirits?
Yeah, it's not because he's on a beach somewhere having a margarita or something.
Yeah, he's having a Corona.
He's having a Corona. That's what he's having. You're right.
Yeah.
So,
So, but
we
I
know
don't.
those guys, and we know that that's going to be an issue across. I don't think that those guys are a big issue as far as they all got caught before in the pre-screen.
Yeah.
So they're all going to go through their stuff, and then they're going to show up in camp. The problem will be when players start getting it, if they get it, once they're in camp or in season. And that'll be the time that we'll start seeing the players decide, a Kenley Jansen or Clayton Kershaw, any of them, say, I don't really want to. I don't think I want to. I don't want to do this. I don't want to take that chance because now it's in the clubhouse.
I think the Dodgers are not the only team. I've heard the Angels also fit into this category where the team has made a summer warm-up pack and that they will do everything that they're supposed to do, wear a mask, hand sanitizer, washing their hands, not going out to restaurants or, not doing things that they don't need to do. So focusing on the season.
They're normal things, the things that they normally do. Players, Mike Trout said it, younger guys, they want to get out. They want to go out when we're on the road. Nobody can do that. Stay in your room and be a team player, I believe is just the bottom line, is what they're all preaching. And everybody's saying they want to do that. And right now it's easy.
Yes.
But in a couple of weeks, in a month, depending on how things are going, and we brought it up early on, I've heard some other people have brought it up about what happens with the teams that are out of it. If anybody gets that, I mean, we'd like to see if this season, I'd like to see everybody competing for a spot, so that's really exciting. And that's what baseball needs. But what about the teams? We always pick on the Orioles, but because they're just that bad, are they the Tigers?
The Tigers in there too.
The Marlins, any of these teams that are that bad. The Rockies last year were that bad.
Yeah.
Will they get to a point where they say, will Nolan Arenado go, this isn't worth it?
Yeah,
Charlie Black
that's a
going to be a free agent soon. Will he say, this isn't worth it?
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. Why do I risk? And the injury risk is one thing. They deal with that every day. They deal with that every year. But the risk of saying, what if in this one time? And that's the biggest thing that we've talked about this season. It's a what if season. It's also this virus is a very what if virus. You don't know how it's going to affect. You don't know if you might. We can't just say, don't go. It's like when out here in the ocean at certain times when there's a lot of runoff, they'll say, don't go to the beach at Santa Monica because the storm drains will go down there and the bacteria levels in the oceans are higher than normal because everything is flowed out there due to like storms and stuff like that. It'll help push everything through. So don't go out there because the bacteria is higher than normal. You'll get sick. And people go, okay, and they don't go, or they do, but for the most part, they'll close them down. And most people just say, okay, I don't want that bacteria. Here, you don't know if you're going to go somewhere. Honestly, you could just go to the store. There's people who said, Kenley Jansen said, I did everything right as far as I thought. I took all the precautions I was told. I did all of this, and I still got it. Part of that problem is that he got it from his son, I think, is what it came out to.
Yeah.
And when you hear the stories, all of these stories about this, it's not, you don't hear the story about, hey, I went to the grocery store and I got it when I was there. No, you hear it is that, yeah, we had a big family gathering and one of them had it and the other 18 family members got it.
Which is your baseball team.
That's the problem, is that it becomes that one little thing. And then I know some players are even talking about, I don't remember who it was that said they think that, Rich Hill said that he thinks that the what they call tier 2 employees, which is like clubhouse attendants, stadium people, should be tested every other day, just like the players. But they're in the agreements, they're not tested necessarily as often, maybe a couple times a week, if they can. But he's like, they're the ones that are going out. We have to be on a lockdown, even if we can go to our families. These folks, we don't know where they're going. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they go out, they get exposed. Maybe they decide they're going to go to a bar. Bars are open where they are, or out to eat someplace, or they're one of those people that you see all in a big giant pool at some resort. Or what did I hear the other day about a kid who went to a Corona party and then dies of coronavirus because he said, I thought it was a hoax.
Yeah. His last words to the nurse was, I think I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of what ifs to the season, but with the Dodgers and I'm going to be the optimistic one. I know you are more like our Grandma Chance. We'd say, Grandma, you're a pessimist. And she'd say, no, I'm a realist. That's you. So I'm going to be the optimist.
I'm optimistic, but I am more of a realist. I spent more time with her probably than the rest of us, so it rubbed
off. Yeah.
But I mean, I want to look at it and say, I really am hopeful. If this is going to go forward, I want it to go forward. I want it to be successful. I don't want to see it break down midway and get canceled. But if all of a sudden it has to stop, I think that that's going to be a big thing. I mean, it is going to be a big thing.
That is true. I was listening to MLB Network on the radio. I don't remember the show I was listening to, but they were interviewing Kyle Gibson, who plays for the Texas Rangers. He's a pitcher. He was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis last year. So coming into summer warm-up, he talked to his doctors, if I get COVID, how is it going to affect me? All of the pros and the cons. And he said something that not just for, he's talking about baseball, but he really is talking about everyone and something that we need to do as a whole is we really, and I know people say, well, it's just baseball. But as a whole, we have to look beyond ourselves and do things for other people. So does it apply to baseball when they're playing a game? Because there are guys that want to play. And if they opt out, somebody else will play for them. But it still goes to, like, with his teammates, they need to do something for him because he is more vulnerable if he got this. And the same thing is he's going to do the things he's supposed to do, wear a mask, all those things, because he wants to be a team player. That struck a chord with me because I wasn't just thinking of baseball terms, but just as a nation as a whole, with all of the debates going on about mask or whatever it may be, is we have to look beyond ourselves. So in this season, I would hope, and you can at me if you want about this. I know it's a game, but the baseball players, and the teams, they're a team, so they should be looking out for one another.
I'm doing my part by just staying home. That's
Me
what
too.
I'm doing. I want some thank yous for that. I am not out there bugging you people. I'm just staying at home.
Yes, they should have a campaign.
That's my contribution.
Thanking people for staying home, wearing masks when they have to go out.
So I think that a lot of times it's easy. I'm less skeptical of the season happening now than I have been in the past. I'm looking forward to the season starting, seeing where it goes. I believe it'll be a different season, but it can be a very exciting season. Be happy to see. I know that on opening day, I will be sitting there watching both games, start to finish. I'll have peanuts, popcorn, hot dogs ready to go.
Yep. Well, for Dodger fans, everyone's going to be watching to see Mookie Betts.
Who is scheduled, projected to be the leadoff hitter this year, anchoring down right field. I was looking at the lineups the other day, just trying to figure it out, because now you have the DH, and we talked about that, I think, last week, about a rotation through. But I'm thinking about what will we see on opening night, and it made me wonder about one thing. Gavin Lux was another player that was not in camp right away. He's there now. Will he be the opening day second baseman? Or will they start with Kike or somebody else in that spot? Kike is probably the guy that would be there. Or will he be, he's not like a pitcher that needs to work up to a certain thing. I'm just wondering, will he be there? Because you had Mookie leading off, Max at first, Justin obviously at third base, Cody out in center field, Corey Seager at short, Jock probably starting out in left field, Matt Beatty as the DH, as one of them. I know, but he's probably the good place to start and be your regular DH kind of guy. Even if you're going to rotate things around, eventually you'll want to get him out and play in the field some. Will Smith behind the plate, and then Gavin Lux at second base. Obviously, there could be some change in that. I just wonder how this affects, where Gavin Lux is. Like I said, I don't think that it's going to affect Kenley Jansen so bad, because Kenley doesn't have to work up to 5-6 innings. Just one.
Yeah. Well, and Gavin Lux not being at summer warm-up, I think he just showed up, I think it was last week. So we're looking at 1 week before, a few days before
didn't even think about
starts.
how short of a time this is. Because even from the beginning of it, it's like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden it's like, wait. Opening day's when?
Yeah. Well,
that's
and
like
Gavin,
almost right on top of us.
Yeah. And Gavin Lux was going to be platooning with Max Muncy, was my understanding. When Max isn't at first, or if he's not doing DH duties to get a break from playing defense, he was going to be at second. At least that was how things were going. But now you have Kike Hernandez, who can slot in there, has played some really good ball at second base. And Corey Seager, of course, at shortstop, he's doing really well. He's having a really good summer warm-up. JT at third. And when you can slot in Austin Barnes, too. Austin Cuz is looking good during these intra-squad games, too. So another good lineup for the Dodgers. I'm excited for opening day.
Recently, MLB.com posted an article by Anthony Castrovent about the top 10 lineups in baseball, where most of them had the usual suspects: Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox. The one that caught my eye, and I agree with, maybe better than 10, they had them at number 10, was the Angels. The Angels have a great looking lineup, and probably, as we've talked about with other teams, having the extra time off has helped. I know there's been some articles across the board, MLB.com, LA Times, Orange County Register, and others, Athletic, have all talked about Albert Pujols, talking about how he feels like he's 25 again. Those little nagging injuries, 2 off seasons now without any surgeries. He's in his 40th year now, his 20th in baseball. Who knows what will happen? He's still slotted in to be the everyday first baseman, and maybe having this time off will be exactly what he needed. He's got the drive. Now will his body let him get where he needs to go or wants to go? But when you look at this lineup, it really looks like it's a team that could cause some damage and go far in a shortened season like this. Joe Madden's been talking about how much he loves David Fletcher. And David Fletcher is to the Angels what Kike and Chris Taylor are to the Dodgers, being super utility guys that can play outfield, they can play infield. You could put him anywhere. I think they've even given him a few reps at first base just in case they needed him there. Obviously, the addition of Anthony Rendon plays a big part. We have a solid third baseman. Shohei being back full time to pitch once a week, to DH. Justin Upton. Last year he had a lot of injury issues. Jason Castro, who's a solid catcher, first year, maybe the only year with the Angels, we'll see. And of course, the best shortstop in baseball right now, at least defensively, Andrelton Simmons. And he was his bat was coming around until he got injured. If he can bring up his average, if he can be a more clutch type hitter when we need him, he's definitely going to be, we already know what he can do on the field. And then finally, Tommy La Stella is probably going to be the second baseman. He'll be in there. And last year he was an all-star for the very first time. He's familiar with Joe Madden because he played with him for the Cubs. Joe Madden nicknamed him 3 a.m. because he said you could wake him out of a deep sleep and he could still hit a line drive. And then Brian Goodwin, who will be in the right field slot. Brian and Anthony Rendon were teammates in Washington for a while. And Brian Castro's was solid. Last year, he was a great guy to have in there, especially playing left field with Justin Upton out. And now, unfortunately for him, he's kind of like a placeholder because they're looking for Joe Adell to come up and in. But he's he's a good guy to have. I hope that even when Joe Adell comes, we keep Brian to be on the bench because you never know when you need a guy like him. And he's always smiling. He's a happy guy, it seems like. So he's always cool to be there. And they start out the season, as we mentioned earlier, they start out in familiar territory by traveling up to see Oakland.
Yeah, another typical day opening series for the Angels. Joe Madden has maintained that a fast start is critical. We just talked about that. And the Angels have 37 games in 39 days to open the year. And then they have 18 straight games from August 14th to the 31st. And I think for the Angels, everyone's looking at the Astros as big matchups, obviously with the Dodgers. And then the Angels playing the Astros. I think a big series will be the Freeway Series. It's always exciting. Yeah. The Angels have a leg up on the series. They're ahead. They beat the Dodgers last year, but you do have Anthony Rendon. Mike Trout is the question mark because when they do play the Dodgers, the first 3 games are going to be in Anaheim, August 14th through the 16th. And then the last 3 are going to be to close out the season in LA, September 25th through 27th. Will Mike Trout be there? That's the question. We all know his wife is due with their first child sometime in August. But even without Mike Trout, I think they still have a strong lineup because you do have Joe Adell who can step in.
Yeah, they'll definitely be able to do that. The sad part would be is what if he gets to a point, opts out because of his family issue there, and then the Angels go on to the playoffs. Now, that's a question I've never seen, and maybe we need to look up. Can they opt back in?
I was just going to ask that same question. If you opt out, can you opt back in? I have not seen anything that addresses that. So we need to do some investigations.
September, it's looking good. Everything's fine at home. His wife and his child are good. Yeah, that's definitely a question. Can he do that? Because that question came up, but I never saw it answered about Buster Posey. He opted out because they're adopting the newborn twins. Can he come back once everything's good? Or, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. When you talk about fast starts, in 2018, the Angels had a fast start. They opened the season 13-3. I remember that season thinking, wait, is this real? And of course they didn't do well. And by 60 games, they were 32-28. So just barely over 500. They ended up that season 80-82. But this is a different team. They have different leadership. Will they be able to have another fast start and hold on to it like that? Their best 60 game stretch was in 2009 when they went 44-16. They were 29-29 and 4.5 games back. And eventually, because of that run, they ended up turning into a 6.5 game lead and won the AL West, and then got swept by the Red Sox. In 2019, their best stretch was 34-26 from May to July. Once again, right there in the middle where they're starting to get there. They've been playing for over a month when they get to May, and they get into July. And of course, mid-July, then it starts getting really hot, depending on where they're going. And they just kind of faded off.
Yeah, for my calculations, I was looking at that stretch from May 9th to July 16th. And if my calculations are right, they won 10 of the series, they lost 7 of them, and they split 2. And they only swept 2 series against Seattle and the Dodgers.
Of course.
So and they lost 2 series against Minnesota Twins. They split series with the Astros and the Tampa Bay Rays. And I wanted to go back and see, because when you look at stretches, who are they playing? Where are the teams? And in this case, they were playing good teams, especially if you look at them in the 2019, you look at Minnesota, the Dodgers, the Astros.
And that's the one thing that we were talking about, strength of schedules, whose schedules got harder, who's got easier, it seems. The Angels kind of went up, because before, you figure when you add in other divisions, especially when you add in the AL Central, they're a weak division. Other than the Twins and the Indians, everybody else in that division the other 3 teams had a losing record. So you don't get, just from the view of it, you don't know how you're going to play those teams and whether it's going to work out in your favor. But your strength of schedule goes down a little bit because you're going to play those teams. Now, not only do they have the Astros, the best team, they would have played the Dodgers anyway, but they're looking at teams that all have better records, so they have to play. And they're not being put out as just a cellar dweller type team. The problem with where they're at is that they could have a great season and still be in third place.
True.
Because of the Astros and not the Rangers, the A's.
The A's, yeah. The Angels are going to finish the season mostly against the NL West, as 11 of their final 15 games are interleague games. And as an aside, when they beat the Dodgers in that series last year, they beat them both times, June 10th and June 11th, 5-3. Then they traveled to Tampa Bay, and on June 13th, they beat the Rays 5-3. Just a little tidbit there that I found.
The Angels have a pretty balanced schedule. When you look overall, they're gone about half of August and gone about half of September. They have Arizona, like you said, at the end of the only team they play in their division is 3 games at the end to end the season, is 4 games versus Texas at home. And then they go to San Diego, and then they go to the Ravine to finish out their season. Every team has a better chance this year to do something.
I have heard that this could be the year of Freeway Series, not just in the regular season, postseason Freeway Series.
Well, that would be fantastic. My only issue is, will we get to go?
If we all wear masks, yes.
That's the big issue is where will we be? And in October, I know they're worried that as we get closer back to late fall, winter months that we'll get to a second wave. When does that potentially start? How long are we going to be dealing with no fans or short fans? And then how does that overall affect the game? I like going to, a fair amount of games. I don't go to a huge amount, but I like going to a fair amount of games every year. If it's always a raffle, a lottery to go to games, how many people aren't going to go? We don't know. That's the what ifs of it all. And what would be great is if it's a freeway series, which I would love, even if I can't go, what happens? So I that would be awesome. The Angels look good. I think that Joe Madden is the right guy for this team. I think Joe Madden probably the right guy for a lot of teams. And I'm happy we have him. I want to see what he's able to do. And I think that it bodes well for the Angels if they play well this season, if they come together and show as a team, even if they don't make it to a World Series, Freeway Series, or a World Series, even if they don't even make the playoffs, if this team comes together, plays well together, and he puts it together, I think it bodes well for the future of what the Angels can do. I think we've agreed that a fast start is probably better than what any 160-game stretch for any team has told us. There's a lot of teams that had great 60-game stretches. We saw the Dodgers had a 51-9 stretch. And obviously, in their case, they did well. They went to the World Series that year. Other teams may have had great 60-game stretches and didn't go anywhere. But I think the fast start is the key. And then this season of what ifs, there's a lot of matchups that we may have seen anyway, but I think they take on a whole different role now. Obviously with empty stadiums, that'll be different. I'm looking forward to empty stadiums. I don't want to hear piped in noise. I think Anthony Rendon told somebody he thought that was stupid.
Yeah, he said it was like smelling a hamburger, but seeing a pizza, something to that effect. He's right on it. I think this is great. There's so many other distractions when you watch a game. Sure, the crowd noise. It was the first time that I watched the Korean baseball. That was the thing that struck me. And it wasn't even the crowd noise to start. It was when a player ran over to get a ball, chasing over a foul ball, and there was nobody there. And then realizing I could hear everything. There weren't outside noises. I didn't hear somebody playing charge. I didn't hear everybody yelling that. I didn't hear them talking about, oh, look, the crowd's doing the wave. There was no distraction. You could hear the game. I think I probably, much to the chagrin of my family, will be clapping as they do in Dodger Stadium to get things riled up. There's that certain beat. I'll just do it on my own. Let's go Dodgers clap. But I do like to hear the ball hit the catcher's mitt, the ball hitting the bat, seeing Shohei Ohtani in an inter-squad game hit a home run, and Mike Trout almost robbed him of it. Right. But maybe there was no crowd noise, maybe because of Rendon's comments, but hearing that crack of that bat and then seeing where the ball went was really cool. So I think it'll be fun to hear the sounds of the game, even though I do enjoy, obviously, the fan noise, and it'll be different, but it's the sounds of the game.
The one thing that's good about the fan noise is when you're watching on TV is if you look away or you get up and let's say you go in the kitchen to get something and you hear a noise, then you know. And if you know where they're playing and you hear them booing or that, okay, the other team must have done something. If you hear them cheering loudly, you know that, especially if they're playing at Dodger Stadium, you want to run back in, or Angel Stadium, and see what did you just miss?
Yeah.
So that's helpful there. But being able to hear the sounds of the game, it's like Jock Peterson coming up to the plate and Cody Bellinger hollering out, "Easy out," just like you're playing on the Sandlot. Oh yeah, easy out, everybody move in, and just some fun, good-natured ribbing and that. And of course, Jocelyn cranks one out of the park. Yeah, there's your easy out, buddy.
And told him to go get it in.
Oh yeah.
Muncie
in Max
style.
Muncie style. He Max Muncie style. He's doing it Muncie style.
That's
like
right.
It. There's a lot of those things that we hope happen. And the fast starts, the 60. I mean, I was looking through some of these. Indians in 2017 started out 48-12, 45-15 for the Red Sox one year. There's a lot of good records for starts. The A's started out 48-12 in 2001. The Mariners in 2001, and that's the year that they won 116 games. So 60 game stretches, they're good. But how are they going to start? It's going to be a fast start, and then because you're only playing the same 9 teams, will there be familiarity breeds? What is it? Contempt? I don't remember what the saying is. But if you're familiar with them and you get there, obviously you're not going to hit the same pitcher every time, but you're going to see some of these guys repeatedly, especially the guy, which you would anyway, in the 10 against your own division.
Yeah. Do you get lazy when you see that teams? Yeah. Not let us say lazy, but yeah, you get complacent. It's like, oh yeah, I know this guy. I know what he's going to do.
Last time we swept them and we beat them badly. Yeah, whatever. Maybe you get a little, a little cocky about it? Overconfident?
Yeah, don't do that, Dodgers. Cody Bellinger, don't do that. And wear your hat right.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I know.
That's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, is that the writers won't vote for him because of the hat.
So while we were talking about all the different setups, and we know like in the Central, they kind of, besides the Twins and the Indians in the AL Central, the rest of the teams weren't that good last year. The NL Central, the Central's like the weak spot. So not having those on your schedule it kind of takes away from your overall strength of schedule or ease or.
Yeah, and how will that work out with the weakest of the divisions playing each other? Are we gonna see the AL Central really be the stronger division against the NL Central, or vice versa? I was just thinking
That's a good question, because the Twins, one of the top teams last year, I think if you put every division, if you just put the West, not as AL, NL, but just combined all of them, 10-team division, 10-team division, 10-team division, the Twins are at the top of the Central. Where's the first NL team?
Yeah, that would be...
Because the Twins, the Indians, let's see. Last year, the Cardinals won the Central with 91 wins, which would put them third in an overall Central, followed by Milwaukee, Chicago. The NL would have more teams on the top. They'd be in the middle, because after the Twins and the Indians, the White Sox had 72 wins. The first 4 teams, Cincinnati had 75, and they were 4th in the NL Central. And then Pittsburgh had 69, which would put them just after the White Sox. And then you'd have the Royals and the Tigers.
And the Tigers were 47 and 114 last year.
They were still 23 games better than the Orioles.
That's true.
The Marlins were 10 games better.
The Tigers.
No, the Tigers, I meant.
The Orioles were better.
14 games better. So the Tigers really were the worst team. I got to stop picking on the Orioles.
Yeah, in this case, but it'd be interesting to see how is that going to play out for these central teams.
And I wonder too, besides like the regular matchups, Yankees Red Sox is always a one to watch because of the rivalry. What other games are probably going to be good matchups we want to watch? Opening day, Nationals Yankees will probably be a good start.
Definitely, because you've got Garrett Cole and Max Scherzer are slated to be the pitchers for that game. So you got a Cy Young Award winner and the Yankees' new $324 million ace. And I saw that even the Yankees were having a hard time against Cole in intra-squad games. So we'll see.
Isn't that what you want? You want the guy who you can't hit on your team?
Definitely, yes. So I guess that bodes well for the Yankees, maybe.
And I wonder too, because I've heard that is pitching, going against your own pitcher, especially when you have good pitchers, like standout pitchers like that, will that overall help them because they're facing one of the best in a controlled environment? They're still having issues. Is that helping them get to a spot when they aren't facing the best?
Yeah, it could.
Or when they end up facing, some of the better pitchers when they get into the playoffs, where they're going to, and that's going to be one thing too that I didn't think about till now, is that a lot of times, especially within inter division, you have a chance to see every team in your division or in your league, not just division, but in your league.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, that won't be the case. So nobody from the AL West or the AL Central will see Garrett Cole until potentially the playoffs. Will that make a difference? Will the better pitchers have an advantage?
So it will all play out. We'll see. Another series I was looking at and this is in the Central, but the Brewers and the Cardinals, they're going to have a season-ending 4-game series. The Cardinals won the NL Central, but the Brewers were only 2 games back. So it'll be a showdown, and it could be, depending on how it is, it's the end of the season. One of them, it could be, a division title hanging in the balance. So that could be a run for either one of those teams. One of the things I will say I mentioned at the beginning of the show is the Field of Dreams game. And they have the Cardinals versus the Chicago White Sox. And I know they did that because it's NL and AL. And it obviously, before we got to where we are, there wasn't going to be a universal DH. So I almost would like to see the Cardinals and the Cubs in the Field of Dreams. That makes more sense to me.
You know what? And that's a natural rivalry. If you go, a couple of years ago, I was in Chicago, and I took a train ride out to where our dad and our dad's parents were born, and there was family out there, to Galesburg, Illinois, which is more western Illinois, if you're not familiar. And when you look at some of the sports stores there on the main street, they have flags that are split, Cubs and Cardinals, because you have households where one is a fan of one, one's fan of the other. It's enough of both. And I never thought about it until I saw that, because you can go into the store and you can get all the Cardinal stuff you want, all the Cubs stuff you want, or that split. Dad always kind of had an affinity towards the Cardinals.
Yes, I was just going to mention that.
And I never really paid attention to it. And I had been there as a kid, but I don't think we ever really went anywhere to see those kind of things.
No,
I didn't really remember. Yeah, we did a lot of cemetery searching while we were there. And went out, and the few times I was there, we didn't really hang out in Galesburg, the city. I knew very little of it. I knew where our great aunt lived, who lived there still. and I knew where our great grandfather's house was at the time, which wasn't even in Galesburg. I didn't even know that. Last time I think I was there was 1977. So it was interesting to go back there, but in seeing the baseball stuff, it was split. So if you go to Iowa and you're close in there, that makes a perfect sense. That makes more sense. I think because they'd already scheduled the White Sox in there, they just left the White Sox be and found another team that was open in the schedule that they were doing. But I agree with you. I blame Rob Manfred for this.
Another matchup would be the Colorado Rockies at Texas Rangers. Not necessarily that the teams, but it will be the opening day game for both of these teams at the Grill. And it will be interesting to see
the Globe Life Rec Center.
Yes. What it looks like
a
inside.
Factory. You should be making something inside of there. You know, like back. Remember when Saturn, the car Saturn, came out? Mm-hmm. That looked like a factory that should be making Saturns. That their ballpark, just from the outside. The inside, I can't wait to go inside and see this field inside. But from the outside, it looks like maybe a Tesla factory.
Maybe, yeah. It is air conditioned, so that is a positive for Globe Life. But otherwise, from this point forward, it is the Grill.
The Grill.
That's what I'm calling it. And of course, we've mentioned already San Francisco and the Dodgers on July 23rd. And the big reason for this one is Mookie Betts. And
yeah, to see Mookie Betts finally in a Dodgers uniform. I still feel, I know that I'm the realist here, or the pessimist at times. I still believe Mookie will be a longer term Dodger. I don't know how longer term, but I don't think this isn't just going to be a blip on the screen. He's going to re-sign and it's going to go far. I believe that. I see something when I see him that makes me feel like he's supposed to be a Dodger.
I feel the same way. Like I said, I haven't been watching all of the inter-squad games, but if I'm, not busy doing things, I'll turn it on. They've been showing them on Facebook and Twitter, and he just fits. There's certain guys that you get. Manny Machado would be a good example to me of everybody's excited. Manny Machado's going to be a Dodger. The players were excited. I remember seeing a video of JT and Alex Wood. They were out on a boat and like, we got him. And then he was the biggest bust. And I can't stand Manny Machado. I didn't like him in a Dodger uniform. I don't like him in a Padres uniform. I just don't like him.
How do you feel about green eggs and ham?
I don't like them, Sam. I am.
But do you like them more than Manny Machado?
Yes, I do. Another guy that was looked at as someone who was going to do great things for the Dodgers, Logan Forsythe. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he never jived with the Dodgers. I always felt like he was out of place. But yeah, there's some other guys, but those are the two. Brian Dozier, who was just cut from the Padres, which to me seems really sad. I mean, he had a minor league contract with them, but to be cut from a pool of 60, no, there weren't quite 60, but he still looks like a nice guy. I'm sure he's very pleasant, but
why do we always do that?
Jive.
Oh, he seems like a nice guy. They do that here with USC's football head coach, Clay Helton. Oh, he's a great guy. He's just not that good of a coach. Or we're not going to fire him because, he's the nicest guy in the world. We all do that. Who cares?
Well,
he couldn't get the job done. Brian Dozier should have been a solid second baseman.
He should have been
from the things he did. Logan Forsythe had good years. He could have come there. He didn't pan out. Manny Machado actually didn't play badly, but he just became a drain on things. That's not my cup of tea. Hustling is not my cup of tea. He had moments. I've seen games, Dodger Classic games where he contributed. He got the game-winning hit. He could have been better, but he just didn't put together. And I think that obviously Corey Seager was the better choice once he was available. The only reason Manny Machado was here is because Corey Seager was injured.
Right. And he was majorly injured.
Tommy John surgery.
And hip surgery.
And hip and those things. So you brought him in, and then we had to kind of watch and see, will Corey be right? Because after those kind of things, who knows what's going to happen? But at least from his standpoint, but Manny, we didn't think he was a nice guy. We don't know what kind of people they are. We don't care.
They're all terrible people. That's it, right?
Exactly. Here's what I want to know. Tell me if you heard this.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. Everybody's talked about the players who have given. David Price never played a game as a Dodger, official game as a Dodger, donated money to Dodger minor leaguers. Not to Tampa Bay, not to Boston, where he had history, to his current team. Albert Pujols, who, if you read the Angels groups on Facebook or other places, people want Albert Pujols to get traded. They said, hey, the DH is back. If it's dead, maybe we can trade him back to finish his career with the Cardinals. They don't want him anymore because he's not been the Albert Pujols they thought he was. And obviously with the money, there's a drain kind of thing. We can't sign. But who's to say we were going to sign anybody? Because for 2 years, we couldn't get anybody to come here, even with all the money to sign them. We could have overpaid for a couple of free agents. Even with the things of everybody wanting Albert Pujols to retire or be dropped or be shipped back to St. Louis, you could say, Albert's a good guy. Look at what he does for the community. He paid the Angels Dominican Republican. And sure, he's Dominican, so there's that play. But he gives a lot to charity. He's a big part of those things. How many times did you hear the names Manny Machado, Brian Dozier, Logan Forsythe?
None.
Giving anything. So maybe they aren't good guys.
It's true. I think we fall into that trap where we say, like you said, oh, well, they're a nice guy, because it's the same thing when your neighbor or somebody that lives in your neighborhood turns out to be a serial killer. Well, yeah, he was really quiet and he always waved, and he seemed like a good guy. What you didn't
realize was he was waving you over so he could kill you in his garage. That's what he was really doing.
Yeah.
Well,
so
yeah, you're right. But
that is true.
I don't know. It's like, how do I know he's a nice guy?
I don't. So baseball terms,
let me ask you this.
They were horrible.
We know that Barry Bonds was, as far as like the public was concerned and the media was concerned, was not a nice guy. People all felt like he was a pain or he just wasn't very friendly. Okay. Mm-hmm. Manny Machado, well, we know what he was. Brian Dozier, who you say probably a nice guy, but in the end, do you want Brian Dozier, Manny Machado? In the end, do you want Brian Dozier or do you want Barry Bonds? Who cares if Barry Bonds isn't a nice guy? Barry Bonds is going to hit 73 home runs, juiced or not. I don't care if he's a nice guy. I want him to be a competitor. I want him to go out there. I want him to be hard as nails. And then off the field, what do I care? I'm not hanging out with him. He's not going to come to my house and hang out. And if I met him, he'd be just like, oh, there's another adult who wants to sell my signature. Brian Dozier, don't get over yourself, man. If I got Albert Pujols, maybe. Mike Trout, for sure. No, I wouldn't do that because I'm not that kind of a fan. But why do you think I care that much about you? I don't know. Maybe he's a self-absorbed jerk. And he wasn't that good of a second baseman for the Dodgers.
He was not. That is true. So baseball standpoint, yeah, he didn't do his job. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. So it doesn't matter if he was a nice guy or not. So in the future, I will make sure I don't say that. So you go on your crazy rant.
You could say it. I just was wondering why we do that. And not just
as
you
a society.
as a society, we don't want somebody, but how many times do we look at it? It's just like you said, my neighbor, who I just found out has a freezer full of dead bodies. The guy who lived across from Jeffrey Dahmer. Did he say, oh, he was always such a nice guy? Maybe he did. Maybe, what do you got to do? What do they say? You don't want to get caught. You're just, you blend in plain sight. You're right there where everybody can see you, but they don't realize what you are. How many times do we see these stories where these guys who were like so-called pillar of the communities turned out to be serial rapists or pedophiles or killers? None of these guys that we know of, the players that we know of, are any of those things.
Right.
We're just saying,
not. But they may not be
the best of everybody.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just finished reading Inside Game.
I'm reading that now.
And one of the points is, and you'll find this, is just overall, we look at recency bias is what it's called. Oh, he had such a great year, or he had a good stretch, and we buy into that means because we want to see the best.
Well, it's the same thing where you trade a player for 2 first-round draft picks, but we only look at first-round draft picks. We don't look at the player, because how often is first-round draft picks are they going to make it to the major league
more
baseball
often,
and
30th round?
But you still have guys that don't, and it's a bust. But like you said, we have that bias where we're like, oh, but he was first-round draft pick.
Yeah, no, and you'll read more about that in that book. That's one of those things that we did. The funny part is that for being a society that's overall negative, we always, on a individual basis, we always want to look at, not everybody, but for the most part, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt and say that they were a nice guy, but they just didn't.
I think that we do that. Yeah, it's for, giving people the benefit of the doubt because we want the benefit of the doubt.
No, absolutely. Treat people as you'd want to be treated. So honestly, if I did what any one of the Houston Astros did, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, and all of them, George Springer, all those guys, I'd want the same. I'd want them to tie me up and have the baseballs. I'd be run over by a bus or whatever. Because I want Rob Manfred run out of town on a rail. I don't say he may be a nice guy because I don't care if he's a nice guy. He's ruining baseball, and I care more about baseball than I do about Rob Manfred.
Totally agree. And you will never hear me say, Alex Bregman, he's probably a nice guy. No, he's horrible, and I don't like him, and he's a midget. I'm a midget.
I will say this. I was impressed with one thing that I learned about Alex Bregman last year. Alex Bregman learned Spanish so he could talk to his teammates, the majority of them that spoke Spanish, so that they could talk baseball. Now, what I believe is he learned it so he could explain to them how the system works and how they too can cheat. So he only did that for a negative endeavor.
I will agree with that.
Now, I'm going to make up for my bad talking of one organization, not the Orioles, the Tigers. And I should bring it up because I've been bad about the Orioles. We just learned that I thought the Orioles were worse than the Tigers, but the Tigers did lose about 7, I think that was right, 7 more games than the Orioles did. But the Tigers, when we talk about fast starts, the Tigers have the best 40-game start. And it worked out for them. They started out the season 35-5.
Wow.
And that was the 1984 Tigers team that won the World Series. They beat the Padres. So it is one of those things that if you start off strong, you can go. And in a short season, when you're at 35-5 at 40 games or 30-10, like we said, the Dodgers were. And I think that the Yankees and the Mariners both started off at 31-9 in different seasons. When you're that far along, I think it'll make it a lot easier to grab those last 20, put yourself in a good position. The key is, just like we saw last year with the Dodgers, though, they had the best record in the National League, and they fell apart against the Nationals.
And I honestly think that part of that, them falling apart, goes back to maybe some overconfidence in the situation. I don't know how you would be overconfident when you're facing Max Scherzer, Strasburg. Yeah.
Patrick Corbin, even who they owned,
yes.
They pretty much owned Patrick Corbin. But Patrick Corbin was no slouch. He just had a bad series. And
I really think that, as diehard Dodger fan, that went into some of the reason why they lost. They just couldn't put it together. And I think some of it was, a good portion of it was, the Nationals had a good team. They knew what they wanted. You look where they started, how far they'd come. They were the wild card, and they're coming into Dodger Stadium and they're beating them. So, confidence. Don't do that.
That's not going to be good when in these situations, and especially with a team like that, where they're, like you said, they're fired up and they're focused. And that was one thing they were. They really were a focused team. The Nationals were.
They'd seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from that season.
Right.
And obviously we all saw the good when they showed off their huge World Series rings. I mean, they were as big as Howie Kendrick's head.
So this season, some of the matchups, obviously we'll see the regular matchups that the Giants and Dodgers to start things off, the Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs and Brewers, Cardinals and Cubs, and Twins and Indians. We'll see all these different matchups that we would normally see. It'll be interesting though now, because now all of these games mean something more. 60-game season is a stretch run trying to get into the playoffs.
When we got the schedule, or it's not even the schedule, when we heard that baseball was coming back, and we talked about, I was like, okay. But now that we have a schedule, we're seeing these matchups, I have to admit, I am getting a little more excited to watch ball games. And even watching those inter-squad games has been fun because it's baseball.
Yeah, and it's not like watching Korean baseball, which was baseball. It was good, and I appreciated all that. This is seeing the players that you have more of a connection to, who you know. And so play ball. And that'll do it for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Sibling Rivalry BB.
We're also on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com. We'd love to hear what you think, so subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast.
Join us next week for our salute to holidays.
I propose August 19th be a national holiday.
What's so special about August 19th?
It's Josh Field's birthday.
Oh.
Yeah!